Hello students, today we're going to be learning about conics and how to convert it into standard form using completing the square. Okay, so first let's look at some steps, and I want you to write these down. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to rearrange the equation if necessary. The second thing is you will need to divide out the coefficient if necessary, and this is if there's a coefficient in front of an x squared term or a y squared term. And then we're going to complete the square, so hopefully you remember how to do that. And then if it is a hyperbola, an ellipse, then you will need to set it equal to 1 if necessary, so if it's just a hyperbola or an ellipse. Okay, so let's look at an example. The first example is 9x squared plus 54x plus 4y squared minus 8y equals negative 49. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to try and recognize what kind of conic this is. And the red flags that kind of give it away is that we have two squared terms, so we know it can't be a parabola. And then I want you to look at the coefficients in front of the squared terms. They are different. And if they are different and then there's a plus sign in between them, if they're different and there's a plus sign, then it's going to be an ellipse. So I'm going to write down just the standard form for an ellipse. Hopefully you'll remember this. It's x minus h quantity squared over a squared plus y minus k quantity squared over b squared, and it's equal to 1. So this is our goal. This is what our equation, we want our equation to look like. And right now it's not looking like that, so we need to get it that way. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look to see if we need to rearrange it. Well, when you have to rearrange it, that's if your x's are not together and your y's are not together. And right now they are. These are my x terms, these are my y terms. It's equal to some number over here. So this is a good place to start. This is how you want your equation to look before you start. The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to divide out our coefficients. So we're dividing out the coefficients that are in front of the x squared term and the y squared term. So, and you're just dividing it out of the same variables. So when I divide out a 9, I will be left with x squared. I'm going to divide out of the 9 here too, so it'd be plus 6x. And remember, we're setting it up to complete the square, so we're going to leave a space after that and close our parentheses. Then we're going to divide out the coefficient of our y terms. So we're going to divide out the 4. So we're going to put plus 4 parentheses, divide it out, so y squared minus 2y. We're going to leave our space here because we're getting ready to complete the square. And because we have two spaces, then at the end of this parenthesis we're going to put 2 more spaces because remember we're going to have to balance it out. And then it's equal to that negative 49. I'm going to try to get that in there. Okay. Alright, so now let's go ahead and complete the square. So to complete the square here, I would have to take half of 6, which is 3, and then square it. So that would give me a 9. So put plus 9 there. And then minus 2, take half of that, you get negative 1, and then negative 1 squared would be a positive 1. Okay, and then we're going to have to balance our equation because we added in these numbers. Now remember, because we divided out the 9, when we balance our equation, we're going to have to balance it with a 9 times 9, which is 81, so we're balancing it with a minus 81. Okay, and then we're balancing it with a 4 times 1, which is positive 4, so we're going to balance it with a negative 4. Okay, so let's write down what we have, and let's go ahead and complete the square. So we've got 9 parentheses. It's always going to be x and then half of that middle term, which is plus 3. We're going to raise it up to be squared, plus 4. This one, when you complete the square, would be y minus 1 quantity squared. We're going to add these two together, so negative 81 plus a negative 4 would be minus 85, and then it's equal to negative 49. Okay, now our whole goal is to get our numbers over on the right side. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this negative 85, we're going to move it over to the other side. So we're going to add the 85. And so now we're going to have 9 x plus 3 squared plus 4 times y minus 1 squared. And then when we moved over the positive 85, that comes out to be 36 on the right-hand side now. Okay, now our other part of the ellipse is that we want it to get it to equal to 1. So we're going to divide everything by 36 so that we can get that right side equal to 1. And then when we do that, we want to simplify that. So 9 goes into 36 4 times, 4 goes into 36 9 times, and then let's rewrite our equation. So our equation is going to be x plus 3 squared over 4 plus y minus 1 squared over 9, and that's equal to 1. And now that looks like our standard form for an ellipse, and so that is our final answer. So then if I wanted you to graph it, which I'm not going to ask you to do that right now because these problems take a long time, then you could graph it. Okay, here we go with example 2. We have x squared plus 36y squared. So first off, hopefully you notice that this is going to be an ellipse. And just keep in mind what the standard form for an ellipse equation looks like. So let's see, do we need to rearrange this? Well, yes we do, because we need to get our x's together, we need to get our y's together, we need to get the numbers on the other side. So we're going to have x squared with the negative 16x. We're just going to put those together. Okay, it's already got the coefficient of 1 for the x squared, so we can go ahead and put our space there for when we complete the square. Then we have plus 36y squared, and then we've got the minus 72y to get it together. And then we're going to go ahead and move that 64 over to the other side. So it's positive there. When we move it over, it's going to be a minus 64. So we're going to say it's equal to negative 64. Okay? Now with this y term, we are going to have to divide by that 36. So let's go ahead and rewrite it. I'm going to go ahead and put parentheses around this. So we're going to have x squared minus 16x with our space. We're going to divide out that 36, so plus 36 parentheses y squared divides negative 72 by 36, and that's minus 2y. We're going to put our space there. And so then we're going to have 2 more spaces, and it's equal to negative 64. Okay, go ahead and complete the square. Take half of negative 16, and that gives you negative 8, and square it. So we're going to put a plus 64 here, and then we need to balance it over here with a minus 64. And then in our second parenthesis, half of negative 2 is negative 1, square it, it's positive 1. Remember, when you balance it, you need to take 36 times 1, which is 36, so we're balancing it with a minus 36. Okay, now let's just simplify it. This is going to simplify to be x minus 8 quantity squared plus 36 times y minus 1 quantity squared. These added together would be, let's see, minus 100. And it's equal to negative 64. Now let's take this minus 100 and let's move it over to the other side. So we're going to add 100. So we'll have x minus 8 quantity squared plus 36 y minus 1 quantity squared, and then it's equal to positive 36. Now, because it is an ellipse, we want to divide everything by the 36. So this one's going to stay the way it is, x minus 8 quantity squared over 36. This is going to cancel and become just a 1. So we actually don't need to write it over 1. So we can just put plus y minus 1 quantity squared, and then it's equal to 1. And here's our standard form for our ellipse. Okay, example 3, we have x squared plus y squared. So notice that we do have a squared term plus a squared term, but the coefficients are the same, and so when they're the same, then this is a circle. Okay, always think of that as, you know, with a circle, the radius is the same going vertically and horizontally, so the coefficients are going to be the same. So that's how I remember that. Alright, so let's go ahead and rearrange it and get the x's together. So we have x squared minus 2x that's going to go together. And then we have plus y squared plus 6y that's going to go together. And then we need to move that negative 26 over to the other side. So that's going to equal positive 26. So let's go ahead and group everything together to complete the square. So we have x squared minus 2x space plus y squared plus 6y space. We're going to have 2 spaces added onto the end, and that's equal to 26. So why don't you pause the video right now, and why don't you finish this out yourself, and then when you're ready to check your answer, press play. Okay, so hopefully you were able to finish it, and this is what you got. Now keep in mind that the circle is equal to r squared, so it doesn't have to be equal to 1. So we're just going to leave it just like this. And this will tell us where our center is and what our radius is. Okay, example 4, we have 9y squared, so here's one squared term, minus 18y minus 16x squared. Okay, so here's our other squared term, but notice that it has a minus there, and the only equation that has a minus is the hyperbola. So this one is the hyperbola. Again, we're going to get it together just like the ellipse. It's just that we're going to have that minus there, which is, it's going to be a little tricky when we're completing the square. So let's rearrange everything and let's get it together. Now you want to lead with a positive. So we're going to get our y's together first. So we've got 9y squared because that is our positive squared term, minus 18y, and I guess they were already together, aren't they? So let me erase that then. If we're going to go ahead and get them together, then let's go ahead and divide by our coefficients since they're already together. So we're going to divide by the 9, and we're going to have y squared minus 2y and a space. Okay. Now, when you divide by the negative 16, make sure that you're dividing out that negative too. So you're going to have x squared. When you take negative 32 divided by negative 16, that's going to be a positive 2x. And then put your space. Okay, and it's equal to 151. Alright, now let's go ahead and complete our square. Half of negative 2 is negative 1. Square it, plus 1. Make sure when you balance it, you're going to multiply these two together, so it's plus 9. Oh, and I forgot to put my spaces in there, didn't I? Oh, let's fix that really quick. There. Okay. So you're going to balance it with a minus 9. And then you have half of 2 is 1, square it, that's plus 1. But when you multiply it together, that's going to give you a negative 16. So when you balance it, you need to balance it with a positive 16. Okay? Alright, so let's go ahead and finish it up and simplify it. We've got 9 times y minus 1 squared minus 16 times x plus 1 squared. We're going to add those together, so negative 9 plus 16 is a positive 7, and that's equal to 151. But we're going to take that plus 7, we're going to move it to the other side, make it a minus 7, and so we have 9 times y minus 1 squared minus 16 times x plus 1 squared equals, that comes out to be 144. And then because the hyperbola is equal to 1, then we want to divide everything by 144. So one of the keys to getting this, making this easier is making sure that you show your work and make sure that it is organized in a way that you can read your work. 9 goes into 144 16 times, and then 16 goes into 144 9 times, and notice that I did not divide out that negative because I want that negative to stay there for it to be a hyperbola. So my final equation, my standard equation, is y minus 1 squared over 16 minus x plus 1 squared over 9, and it equals to 1. Okay, students, I want you to try to do example 5 on your own. And so hit pause when you're ready to check your answer. Go ahead and hit play, but I'm just going to have the correct equation there so that you can check your answer. And then if you have a question, make sure that you put it on the whisk. But don't just end your notes. We've got a couple more examples to do of parabolas. Okay, so don't just stop the video here and quit watching. You need to continue watching. So do this problem and then let's check your answer. Alright students, this was the correct answer. So hopefully you got it. If not, put a big star by this example so that I can check your work and see where you made the mistake. Or you can go back and check your work and see if you can find the mistake first. Alright, example 6, we have x squared plus 14x minus 12y plus 97 equals 0. We only have one squared term in this example, so I want you to put a big star by this example. If you have one squared term instead of two, okay, then that means that it is a parabola. Okay, now I want you to keep in mind of what the standard form of a parabola was. If you don't remember what it is, I want you to go back and look at your the previous page of notes. What you're going to be doing is the first step is going to be to get the squared letter on the left, and everything else needs to go on the right. Okay. Alright, so let's look at this problem. So we're going to put our x terms together, which they already are, but we're going to go ahead and put everything else on the right hand side. So x squared plus 14x equals, we're going to move the negative 12y over, and we're going to move the plus 97 over. Okay, so when we move the negative 12y, it becomes a positive 12y. Positive 97 becomes minus 97 when we moved it to the other side. Okay? Now we're going to go ahead and complete the square with the squared term. So we're going to have x squared plus 14x space. We're going to go ahead and add in our other space to balance it, but then we're going to have to move it to the other side. Okay, so just complete the square. We get 7, then we square it. That gives us 49. So we need to balance it with the minus 49. So you're going to get x plus 7 quantity squared. Now we're going to move this minus 49 over to the other side. So we're going to have 12y. Now when we move this over here as a positive 49, remember we're going to combine it with the negative 97. So that's going to give us minus 48. Now if you look back at the standard form for a parabola, we do have this squared term, so this squared term is okay, but remember we divided out that coefficient. So we're going to divide out the 12, and hopefully it'll go in evenly, which it does. We have y and then minus 4. You want that y term to have a coefficient of 1, so any time you don't have a coefficient of 1, then you need to divide that out. Okay, now it looks like the standard form for a parabola. So this is your final equation. Okay, y'all, this is your last example. Y squared plus 6x plus 12y minus 6 equals 0. I want you to do this on your own, and you're going to fill in the equation that you get on your whisk. Have a good evening.